My latest project that I'm going to be sharing with you all today is called Speakeasy. And this talk is going to be really a story about how I built the product, why I built it, and sort of some of the challenges that I faced throughout and lessons that I learned while working on it. So to get us started, I'll show you a little bit of what the app looked like when I first started building it. This is sort of the interface. You kind of go into a chat and you get matched with somebody for a one-on-one connection. And it can be a video chat or a voice chat. And kind of the idea behind it was, this was at the beginning of the pandemic. And in the US, at least, there was also a lot of curfews in some of the major cities in the United States. And so people were forced to stay inside. They couldn't go out after 8 p.m. And so I wanted a way to sort of connect people together so they could talk, even though we weren't able to do normal socializing and normal social connections outside in the real world. And so this is the idea behind the app. You would be matched with a partner for a chat. You have a couple of minutes to discuss the question. And this question is sort of like it's a randomly selected question, sort of an icebreaker, a way to get the conversation started. And the vibe of the site is that you should try to be really genuine and try to skip past the small talk and get to like a real human connection with the person that you're talking to, because you only have 2 minutes. And so you don't want to spend that 2 minutes introducing yourself and saying where you work and where you live, because that'll use up the whole 2 minutes really fast. And so that was kind of the initial idea. And so I want to share now with you is sort of what went right in building it and in releasing it and in getting people to adopt it and try it out in the real world, and then also what went wrong and things that I learned. So let's start with what went right. So the first thing is that I use this library called SimplePeer to do the WebRTC connections. And for those of you that don't know, WebRTC, it stands for Web Real-Time Communications. And this is a web standard for connecting two browsers together over a peer-to-peer connection for video and voice calling. And it also has this thing called the data channel that you can actually use for sort of arbitrary data and protocols. And that's actually what I built WebTorrent with. But the main thing that people know WebRTC for is for video and voice chats. Anyway, so if you've ever tried to look at the WebRTC API and build something with it, you'll quickly realize that there's just a whole bunch of concepts you need to learn, a lot of buzzwords, stun, turn, ICE. There's just like all these kinds of acronyms that stand for all these different concepts that actually let WebRTC do its thing. But it turns out if you're building an app, like a lot of that stuff can get in the way. And so most people will lean on some kind of a helper library that will let you sort of simply accomplish the goal of connecting two browsers together and linking their video streams into a video tag so that people can see the person on the other end, right? And that's what this library does. This library is also used in my WebTorrent project. So it was really nice to be able to reuse that code and to find that it actually works relatively well. I actually hadn't used the video component of this because in WebTorrent, we just used the data part. And thanks to a lot of great contributions from other open source maintainers on the project, the video part actually worked quite well. And so I was pleased to see that. The next thing is sort of like the launch. So how did I launch it? Well, basically, this is like a typical product launch type of situation. So I posted a link to Product Hunt, which is a great site for sharing products. And a lot of people go there to sort of see like what is new today, what is a new app that I can try out. And so I posted it there. And for a while, we were the #1 product, and it was sort of like fighting in the top like 5, spaces. There was like different products, going past each other. And then if you can see here at the end of the day, we ended up at #4, which is a little bit of a bummer, but still quite a lot of upvotes. A lot of people checked it out. There was a lot of good feedback. So one pro tip, if you're ever submitting anything that you've built to Product Hunt, I really recommend you post it at midnight. Or actually a minute or two after midnight, because what that does is it'll actually, at midnight, they restart the vote counting. And so you'll have a much better shot at making it into the top upvoted projects of the day if you do it at midnight, because everyone is sort of reset to 0 at that point. Anyway, so that's what we did. It worked well. And people, it was a real good way to get people to check out the app. Oh, and as you'll notice here, I should have mentioned this earlier, but I called it Virus Cafe when I initially released it, because I was really thinking about like, this is like a coronavirus kind of themed thing, and this is like a way to go to a cafe virtually in coronavirus times, and so that's why it's called Virus Cafe here. And then here's the release on Hacker News, and so it also did pretty well there. And you'll notice the first comment is like somebody correcting me and saying that. I was saying that small talk is not good, and we should jump to the real meat of a conversation. And then of course the first commenter is somebody saying, actually small talk is really good, which is very typical of Hacker News. But anyway, it's all good. And so here's just some of the feedback that people shared. People were really liked it and thought it was really interesting experiment. People were using it as a replacement to talking to their colleagues. So some people hadn't left their houses in a really long time because of the virus, and so this is sort of a great app for them at that time. One person said that they had really wholesome conversations, and that they definitely recommend it. A lot of people I noticed spent more hours in the app than they expected to. So they kind of came in thinking like, I'm going to just check this thing out. And then like hours went by and they were just talking to all kinds of interesting people, because the way the app works is it will match you with somebody. And then when that 2-minute call is up, then you'll get matched to somebody else. And so it's sort of really addicting for some people. They're just like meeting all these interesting people and having all these great conversations. I also think that was really helped by the fact that most of the people trying the app were from Product Hunt and from the Hacker News communities. And so you had this nice like group of people all interested in tech, all interested in products and development and this sort of similar topics. And so this was a really good good outcome. People making friends all over the world. In Paris, this person made 2 friends in an hour, and I'm actually not sure why they said an hour because the calls are 2 minutes, but maybe they meant like out of all the conversations they made 2 really good friends in different parts of the world, and just so on and so forth. One really interesting comment that I saw on Hacker News was somebody said they met a German girl and they had a great time chatting, and right when they were exchanging telephone numbers, the server restarted. So I actually, whenever I deploy, I sort of have this little script that just restarts the server, but it sends a little message to everybody saying like, end your call, wrap up what you're talking about because the servers are going to restart in 10 seconds. And in this case, these 2 people were right about to exchange their numbers, and then the connection got disconnected. Then somehow the German girl in question found this post on Hacker News and followed up with an email. So they were able to connect in the end. Anyway, so I thought that was a really great moment there. Yeah, so let's get into a little bit more of the meat. So moderation. So one of the things about the app that I was really concerned about was to make sure people behave well. And so one of the first things I built this little dashboard here that I'm going to demo to you. So you can see here on the right is the app, and the app is actually functioning. And then on the left is my admin dashboard. And so what I could do is if I click on somebody's avatar, I could actually send them a little message telling them to behave appropriately or whatever thing I need to tell them. And at the beginning, I built this because I was really concerned about people not behaving well, and the site being used sort of like a chat roulette kind of thing. And so in the end, I didn't actually need to use this, fortunately. So it turned out to be like completely unnecessary. But one good thing that came out of this was the functionality of the thumbnails there that you see where an image is captured and then sent to the admin dashboard there. That actually ended up making its way into the product. And so now when you're actually in the Speakeasy waiting room, waiting to be matched with people, the little avatars of the other people who are chatting will show up in there. And so it really feels like there's like a party or a space that you've entered into, and you can see all the people that are there, even if you're only talking to like one of them at a time. So this code ended up being reused, and now it's sort of on the public site and everyone can see how it works. But yeah, so that was one thing. So now let's talk a little bit about what went wrong. So things that were challenges and things that really made it hard to build this product. So really, honestly, this whole section is almost entirely going to be about iOS bugs. So it turns out like WebRTC was added to Safari as sort of one of the last browsers. Safari was sort of kind of late adopter of it, and still, even though it was added several years ago to Safari, it's still kind of in a buggy state, I would say. It is possible to make an app, a WebRTC app that works well on iOS, but it does take quite a bit of hacking, like hacky code to sort of deal with the bug in Safari. So let's just go into a couple. I actually think I have like 5 or 6 of them that I'm going to share that are just to give you a taste of like what most of my time was spent with, like, because I was able to prototype this in like, a couple weeks. And then I spent like another like 3 or 4 weeks just fixing iOS bugs and trying to understand what was going on. So, so I want to give you a taste of the suffering I had to go through while I was working on this. So the first thing is about 10% of the time, the audio would just be muted for one end of the call. And I couldn't figure out why, and I tried, debugging it, and it turns out it was just a bug in the browser. And like, this is just a thing that everybody was living with for all their WebRTC apps. And fortunately, this was fixed in iOS 13.6, so it's all good now. But yeah, this one was really annoying. The thing about it that I was really confused about was when I opened up the inspector and I clicked on the video element, and then I called pause and then I called play on it, suddenly the video would work. So it was just like some weird thing about the video not just starting at the correct time, no matter what I did. And so the hack to fix it is just, you basically say, when the video starts to play, call pause. And then when pause happens, call play. And this fixes the problem. So really, really nasty hack, but that's what it takes. So here's another one. So there's this API you can use called Get User Media, which is sort of how you get access to the user's camera. Really, really powerful API. But if you call it twice on iOS, then the second call will break the first video stream that you got. And really, there's no real good reason for this. And I think it's intentional because it's still an issue in the latest iOS. And I'm going to skip past this. It's not really, the code isn't that important. Here's another one. So when you pin an app to your home screen and you have a little shortcut there, it turns out the camera and the microphone just don't work. So fortunately, that was also fixed in the last couple months. But yeah, that was also really annoying. Here's another one. So if you switch out of Safari and you go to another app and then you come back to Safari, then the video stream just breaks. And now you're just sending black video to the other side. And that was also like totally inexplicable thing. But that's also been fixed. Here was the hack that I employed in the meantime, which is like whenever the user refocuses Safari, you get this little visibility change event, which tells you, hey, like the user's refocused the browser, and then I would just call pause and then call play again, and then it would unfreeze the video. But yeah, that's another really annoying one. I'll just do a couple more to give you just a taste. There's really a lot of these iOS bugs with WebRTC. So one of them was if you take your AirPods out or you put them in, then the remote stream, so that's the other person's video or audio, would just freeze and the audio would stop playing. Unclear why. Here's the hacky fix that I employed, which is basically if the video tag ever gets paused, you just call play. So this is kind of similar to the other fixes before. Here's another one. So the way that WebRTC works is you can actually ask for a specific quality video stream. You could say, give me like 1080p video if you really want your app to like look good. And the way it's supposed to work is if the camera isn't really 1080p, it's only like a lower quality, then it's supposed to just give you the best that it can do. But with Safari, if you ask for 1080p, then you just get nothing back. It just fails. The highest that you can ask for is 720. And so that was a really annoying and confusing bug for a while. I was like, why, when I try to ask for good quality, do I just get nothing? And yeah, and native apps don't have this problem, of course. So the fix is basically you just do a little if statement on iOS, and you say, if it's iOS, then I'm going to ask for a lower quality video. Okay, and I'll just give you one more bug, and then we'll wrap up the iOS bugs because I could keep going. But this is one of the most annoying ones. So there's this thing called a web view, which is sort of how other apps can embed browsers in their app. And the web view is how third-party browsers actually implement their browsers. So in case you don't know this, basically third-party browsers on iOS, Chrome, Firefox, Brave, they're not really true Chrome or Firefox or Brave. It's really Safari with like a skin, like a UI skin on top of it. They're not allowed to actually ship the true Chrome or true Firefox on iOS because Apple just declared that that's a rule that everyone has to follow. And so for this reason, Chrome is built with this web view, and it turns out this web view doesn't support WebRTC. So if a user comes to your site and they're using Chrome, so here's an example. This is a Chrome user coming to the app. We have to basically show them an error page and say, sorry, like we just can't get access to your camera while you're using Chrome. You have to just switch to Safari right now, which is totally inexplicable thing to have to ask the user to do, but that is what it is. So anyway, rather than going on and on and on about this, I will switch now to just sort of maybe some stories about unexpected things I learned while working on this. So one thing was the URL. I didn't think this would be an issue, but a lot of people, when they saw this URL, they thought that they were getting sent a virus link, like an actual virus, like their computer was going to get infected if they clicked the link. And obviously that's because there's the word virus in the name. And so a lot of people didn't think it was as cute of a name as I did. And so I think it was really hurting like the adoption of the site because people were just like afraid to click. And so yeah, I didn't expect that. And it's also kind of silly because like, why would a virus site put virus in the domain name and just tell you that it's a virus? But anyway, so I ended up switching the name to a much better name, Speakeasy. And a speakeasy is like a bar or secretive bar that you can go to, and it's kind of really the correct vibe for the site. It's like a place where you go and have good conversations, and you can feel safe in talking about stuff. And that's kind of what I was going for. So that's the new name, and I think it's a lot better. So another thing that I found that was quite unexpected was some people were using the app as basically an audio calling app. Like they just wanted to call their friend, and so they would go on the site and they would match with random people until they finally found their friend. So they would disconnect from everybody until they got matched to their friend, and then they would just chat with that friend forever. And they would click the extend button to keep the call going. And I was like, why are people doing this? But it turns out that I actually got matched to one of these people, and I asked them like, why are you using the app like this? And they said that they liked that they could use it without an account. And all the other apps were forcing them to make an account. So they were literally putting up with like the app really not being meant for this purpose, just so that they could chat with each other without having to make an account, which I thought was really interesting user behavior. Okay, here's another thing. So there's this one Saudi Arabian influencer who tweeted the site out, and that led to sort of a whole bunch of Saudi users coming onto the site, which really changed the vibe of the site. And one of the things I noticed was some of them would do this thing where they would block the camera when chatting with you. And at first I was like, this doesn't seem right. This seems like maybe they're up to no good. And I don't know, I need to look into this. So I got matched to a few of them and spoke to them and learned that actually a lot of them were women who wanted to use the app, but they didn't want to show their face if they were matched with a man. And also some of the questions that were being asked by the app are relatively personal questions. And I think they just felt more comfortable opening up if they didn't have to show their face. And so that's actually when I added an audio option to the site. When I saw this behavior, I said, oh, people might want to do just an audio chat. So let me go and do that. I'll implement a button for audio that they can use, and that was a good learning. So just a couple of final sort of lessons I learned that I'm going to share. So one thing that is really important is you need critical mass for an app like this to work. What I mean is you can't actually make this work if people are not online at the same time. So, even if I were to get like, say, 1,000 people to come visit the site, if they're all spaced perfectly, like, a minute apart, and no one is ever online at the same time, then the app just doesn't work because it's a synchronous video chat. You have to be online at the same time. And so this is actually the biggest problem to solve if you're building an app like this, is how do you get critical mass? So one of the things I made a mistake on was, like I just mentioned, I added this audio option. And the way I did it was I asked you up front, do you want to do video or do you want to do audio? And I sort of split the user base into those two groups. And what that ended up doing is sort of making each of those groups half as big as they would have been if there was just one group. And that led to sort of the site, a lot of the time there would not be enough people online when you click one of the groups. You might want to do video, but everyone is happening to be in audio right now. And so you just be alone over there in the video room waiting and waiting for somebody to come that never comes. So that's just one really important point in an app like this. And then the other really important point is you need shared context. So you need people to be online at the same time who have the same interests in common. They need to actually want to talk about the same stuff. It's fun to meet completely random people, but there's a limit to that. There's a limit to how often you want to do that. And I think what's the more like lasting behavior is wanting to talk to people who actually share your interests. And so that's kind of how I've redesigned the site. And I'll show you a little video here. This is the current version of the site. It's all based around events now. So you're going to see here that the user clicks host an event, and then they create like kind of a name for an event. And this is an event that is kind of an interesting one. I called it Workout with Strangers. So the way it's going to work is, this is just, I'm demonstrating how flexible the platform is. So what's going on here is that they're picking an avatar for their event, and they're going to set a description. And this is an event where when you join the URL, you're matched to somebody for 60 seconds and you're given a workout to do, like sit-ups or push-ups or plank or jumping jacks. And you're going to see here, they're going to configure the dark mode, and they're going to set up the length of time of the matches to be 60 seconds. And they're going to disable the option for users to extend the chat. So you're really forced to switch to new person after 60 seconds. And then they're going to go down here and they're going to sort of change the icebreaker questions to be really a list of workouts that the person, that the two people are going to have to do together. So, so this is just an example of like, you can really make really interesting and surprising events using the tools on Speakeasy. And once they've done that and they click the back button here at the top, you'll see that just like that, boom, there's now a Speakeasy for an event where you work out with strangers, and all you have to do is tap to start and you'll get matched with people to do that. Yeah, so that's kind of how the site currently works. So anyway, to conclude, I learned a lot. WebRTC apps are fun. They're a great type of app because they're just so dynamic and so interesting, and you don't know what users are going to do. And that's actually why I'm really excited about the new direction for the site, where people make events, because you never know what people are going to make. And I really want to give people the tools that they need to create interesting kinds of events. And if I succeed, then people will have all kinds of different groups meeting on there, and that's kind of what I'm going for with Speakeasy. So if you haven't played with WebRTC before, I recommend you try to build something with it. It's really fun. If what I'm working on is interesting to you, please hit me up, and we should talk, because I'm looking for collaborators. And yeah, that's basically it. So that's the end.